Every time you panic sell your stocks because the market dropped 2% somewhere in Manhattan, a guy with a Rolex and zero body fat opens a bottle of champagne. Welcome to the economy of fear, where your emotional damage is someone else's payday. We've all been there. One bad CPI prints, your Robinhood app turns redder than your dating history, and suddenly you're liquidating everything like the apocalypse is tomorrow. Meanwhile, the top 1% of traders, the actual players, aren't panicking. They're printing money. Why? Because while you're busy crying into your keyboard, they're using strategies so advanced, so calculated, that it feels like cheating. Spoiler, it kind of is. Today, we're going to explain how these elite traders game the system while the rest of us just get gamed. Let's break it down. Retail traders, that's you and me, are the financial equivalent of people bringing a butter knife to a gunfight. You're trading on vibes, maybe some Reddit posts, a YouTube thumbnail that said, buy this now. If you fancy, maybe a chart with some colored squiggles. But the top traders, they don't trade on vibes, they trade on information asymmetry, leverage, speed, and risk insulation. They trade like psychopaths with spreadsheets, and they don't care if Apple dips 5%. They're already shorting it through a reverse volatility gamma straddle wrapped in a Cayman-based shell company. You just Googled half those words. That's the point. Let's start with high-frequency trading, HFT. This is Wall Street's version of the Flash, but in suits. HFTs use algorithms and ultra-fast internet connections, and I mean fiber optic cables laid under the Hudson River kind of fast, to execute thousands of trades per second while you're sitting there trying to place your little market order. Their bots have already bought and sold that stock 5 times and made a clean profit. They exploit tiny price inefficiencies that exist for literal microseconds. It's like clipping coupons at hyperspeed, except the coupons are worth millions. And no, you can't do this from your iPad on your lunch break. You'd need a data center, 100 million in infrastructure, and a team of engineers who have a social anxiety and PhDs in particle physics. Then there are dark pools. No, not the kind where Bond villains swim. These are private exchanges where institutional traders make massive trades without spooking the market. Let's say Goldman Sachs wants to sell 5 million shares of Tesla. If they do that on the open market, the price crashes before they've even offloaded the first million. But in a dark pool, no one sees it. The trade is executed in secret and the market doesn't flinch. You, on the other hand, post your tiny order on Robinhood, and it gets front-run by a bot that saw your click before your order even hit the exchange. Next, meet the market makers. Citadel, Virtue, Jane Street, the guys who control the actual plumbing of the market. They're the ones quoting the buy and sell prices for everything from Microsoft stock to uranium futures. When you buy a share of Google, guess what? You didn't buy it from another retail trader, you bought it from them. They were sitting on both sides of that trade, scalping a fraction of a cent off of you while smiling and refreshing their yacht listings. It's like going to a casino where the dealer bets against you and writes the rules. The top traders don't react to news, they pre-position. They don't hope a trade works out, they engineer outcomes. And most importantly, they understand one thing better than anyone else on earth. Fear is monetizable. Your fear is predictable, it's quantifiable, it's tradable, and they have the data to prove it. Want to see how far this rabbit hole goes? Hit that like button and subscribe. Or don't, but just know your lack of engagement is probably being used in a sentiment index somewhere. So now that we've established that you're basically bringing a butter knife to a gunfight, let's talk about the weapons that the top 1% of traders are actually using. You ever heard of market making? Sounds boring, right? Like something your accountant uncle does between Sudoku puzzles. Wrong. Market makers are the silent assassins of finance. These are the people who buy and sell the same asset at lightning speed, shaving off pennies with each trade. Sounds small. Multiply that by millions of trades a day, boom, you've just made enough to buy a yacht shaped like Elon Musk's ego. And the craziest part, they don't care about news. They don't care about the latest CPI numbers or whether Jerome Powell had oat milk or white milk in his coffee. They care about order flow, the raw data of who's buying, who's selling, and how fast they're moving. Market makers are like Vegas bookies who always rig the odds slightly in their favor. And when you place an order, guess who's trading against? Yeah, them. Let's move on to high frequency trading, or HFT. These guys aren't just fast, they're Formula One fast. They'll place thousands of trades in the same time it takes you to blink and accidentally fat finger your Robinhood sell button. They're not looking at charts, they're looking at milliseconds, nanoseconds even. They'll literally pay to have their servers placed closer to stock exchange servers just to save microseconds in execution time. This is the kind of stuff where the competition isn't who can analyze a balance sheet better, it's who can write the better algorithm, run the faster code, and rent the closer rack at the data center. It's Wall Street, but as a LAN party for sociopaths in Patagonia vests. Now, let's sprinkle in some arbitrage. Arbitrage is what happens when you realize the same banana is selling for $1 at one store and $1.20 at another. You buy it at the cheap place, sell it at the expensive one, and collect your free money. Only in trading, it's not bananas, it's EFTs, crypto, forex, and options. And instead of you doing it manually, it's bots running 24/7, finding these gaps and snatching them before your tired human brain even notices. In fact, one of the most lucrative forms of arbitrage is latency arbitrage. That's when someone figures out that your information feed is a few milliseconds slower than theirs, so while you're reacting to an uptrend, they've already bought the dip and sold the bounce. You're basically trading in the past, they're in the future, with Doc Brown and a DeLorean. But wait, there's more. Let's talk about option selling. You ever wonder why selling options feels like printing money until it doesn't? That's because smart traders are playing a probability game. They're the casino, and you're the drunk tourist betting it all on red. They're selling calls and puts on tickers you YOLO into without understanding implied volatility, gamma risk, or the fact that earnings are tomorrow, and you just bet your paycheck on a meme stock. Meanwhile, these guys are collecting premium after premium, banking on the fact that most options expire worthless, and if things get wild, they've hedged. You haven't. You're just refreshing your phone and crying into your Monster Energy. Now, here's the truly evil part. Dark pools. No, not a Harry Potter themed spa. Dark pools are private exchanges where big institutions trade massive amounts of shares without moving the public markets. Why? Because if Goldman Sachs wants to buy 5 million shares of something, they do it on the open market. The price shoots up, but in a dark pool, they whisper it into the void, make the trade, and no one knows until later. It's like insider trading's legal cousin. You're out here playing with public info, and they're sipping cocktails while trading in private back channels. The whole system is designed to keep the big trades quiet and the retail traders noisy and wrong. So, to recap, the top 1% aren't just lucky or smart, they're structurally advantaged. They've got the better data, faster tools, private networks, and armies of PhDs writing code. And what do you have? A Reddit account and a dream. Good luck, champ. And here's the kicker. They're not just making more money when the market goes up, they're making money when it crashes, when it chops, when it sleeps. Because unlike you, they're not trying to guess direction, they're just exploiting the game itself. So at this point, you might be thinking, okay, I get it. They're faster, smarter, richer, but surely I can learn this stuff too and beat them at their own game. Nope, because here's the part nobody tells you. The game isn't fair. It's not even supposed to be. Let's talk about order flow. You know those free trading apps you love? Robinhood, Webull, whatever. Ever wonder how they make money if they're not paying commission? They sell your trades. More specifically, they sell your order flow to hedge funds like Citadel Securities, who get a sneak peek at what the dumb money is about to do, and front run it, legally. That's like playing poker with someone who sees your hand before deciding whether to call raise or fold, and you're wondering why your bluff never lands. Bro, they read your cards before you even shuffled. But wait, it gets better. Let's talk about wash trading, spoofing, layering, the dark arts of market manipulation. These tactics are technically illegal, but if you've got 20 lawyers, 40 compliance officers, and a war chest the size of a small country's GDP, you dance close to the edge without ever falling in. And when someone does get caught, they pay a fine that's less than their launch budget and get back to printing money like it's Monopoly night at Jay Powell's house. Now, let's touch on taxes, or more significantly, the total lack thereof. Because while you're filing W-2s and getting wrecked by capital gains tax, these guys are using carried interest loopholes, offshore tax shelters, and family offices set up in the Caymans. Your portfolio is getting taxed harder than a divorced dad in California, and they're paying less than the janitor at Goldman Sachs. Even worse, they're using debt to avoid taxes altogether, borrowing against their stock and holdings instead of selling. So they get cash, but owe no tax because it's a loan, not income. It's like they found the death cheat to capitalism. They're not sharing them in your little Learn to Trade Discord server. Now, let's look at behavioral advantage, the final nail in your peasant trading coffin. When the market crashes, you panic. You sell, you cry, you ask ChatGPT if it's time to buy the dip. The top 1%, they're buying your fear at a discount. They want volatility, they feed on it. When you freak out and exit the market, they enter calmly, systematically, like a serial killer in a Patagonia vest. Because, unlike you, they're not driven by dopamine, Reddit karma, or the number of fire emojis under their last tweet. They're driven by models, math, and discipline. And don't even get me started on access. You're using the same 15 indicators at every YouTuber with a $40 mic and a dream. Meanwhile, the top 1% are buying satellite images, credit card data, and scraping millions off data points in real time. They've got economists on speed dial and former politicians consulting on macro risk. You're guessing if a candle is bullish. They're predicting GDP movements 6 months out using soybean exports and Chinese smog density. This is not about hard work, it's about access, scale, and a little sprinkle of sociopathy. So, where does that leave you? Well, you have two choices. One, keep pretending you're one click away from becoming the next Warren Buffett. Or two, accept that the top 1% aren't just beating the game, they built it. They're not smarter, they're not luckier, they're just playing a different game on a different level. And you're not losing because you suck, you're losing because you don't even know the rules. If you learned more about how the game works in the last 10 minutes than you did in your last years of trading, maybe, just maybe, you should hit that like button and subscribe. Because the top 1% won't explain it to you, but we will. Every single week.